Hello friends, I'm Randy Eager with our new company Strategic Storm Internet Marketing. We build and market your website so that you don't have to. Welcome to our webinar, Why Your Website Might Be a Bogus Money Pit. We're going to be busy today. This webinar will demonstrate the major reasons that agents' websites not only don't make them money, but cost them money every month in time, frustration, and hosting fees. If you haven't had a chance to get the link to the handout, you can go to www.strategicstorm.com/handouts/websitefixes.pdf. So let's get started this way. What you'll learn today. Mainly, what we're going to look at today is the dirty dozen website mistakes. Here, you're going to learn what the most common mistakes are in website and agent websites. It's one thing to have a pretty and even professional-looking website, but if it doesn't work for you, what's it worth? Why these mistakes will turn off your prospects. In order to know what's right with websites, you have to know why your website is turning off your visitors. I'll reveal some real corkers. What you can do to implement fixes. Of course, once you know what turns off your visitors to your website, you'll want to know how to fix it. That's going to be one of the most important aspects of what I'll cover today. To do this, I'll give you examples of how to implement these fixes the right way, and how feature changes can make your website more market-friendly. So why make these changes? You want to have the most market-friendly website going. A website that compels your visitors to want to give you their name, email, and address phone number is what you want. Above all is being found. What's the point of having the best website on the planet if nobody knows you're there? SEO, or search engine optimization, is to website marketing as real estate agents are to home and condo marketing. Create your own website without the use of a professional to market it for you makes you a FSBO with your website marketing. And you wonder why you're not getting leads. Now, design can heavily affect the site's success. The reason why a viewer will stay on your website is primarily content. But with a pleasing and professional design, it will force the viewer to look just a little bit longer than they normally would have to see where the content is. This affects the site's success. And websites rise or fall depending upon content. If you never show the viewer good content, you've lost them. The content and design must dovetail one with another. The interesting thing is that good content can make up for poor design. If the viewer is engaged in reading compelling content, they won't care what the site looks like. Focus on content first and then build your design around your content. Know what you have to say and then figure out a way to show what you want to say. Based upon what we've just talked about, there are three major areas that we'll pay attention to for your website. They are SEO, or search engine optimization, the design of your website, and content issues. Let's take a look at these one at a time. SEO. Do you have frames? I'll shortly demonstrate what frames are, but they can absolutely kill your chances of being seen by the search engines if used improperly. If you have a website that's 5 or 10 years old or so, you might want to check this. If it was built with frames, you've got problems. Do you have too many graphics? While it might seem that having a lot of graphics would make this website look very appealing, for search engines, it makes them invisible. Why? Because search engines can't read graphics. So we need to learn the right proportion of graphics. Do you have congruent content? With Google having changed their algorithm to the way they index their websites, you'll need to understand if your content is congruent. And we'll be going over that for you. And do you have a blog site? It's only now that agents are starting to get blog sites, but they're not being done well and are not taking advantage of the morphing relationships that are now a big benefit of having both a website and blog site. More on this later. How about design? Do you have a rotating slideshow? You should be using tools such as JavaScript or Adobe Flash to run your slideshows. These are tools that you should be using to play your slideshows of properties, rooms, or neighborhoods interactively on your website. Do you have featured listings? While most of your website should be built for buyers, this is the area that is specifically built for your sellers to get listings. Do you have multimedia? This is photos, podcasts, and video. Multimedia is what creates the pizzazz for your website and will cause more interest and professionalism. Do you have social media synchronization? You have a website. You probably have Facebook, Twitter, and other social media tools. The question is, do you have them synchronized together? And our third major topic is content. And the four areas that we're going to discuss here are, do you have bogus content? Have you ever opened up those agent websites and they immediately start telling you all about themselves and how wonderful they are and how much they'll care for you and your business? Yeah, well, 90% of all agent websites do this. It's an immediate turnoff to your prospects. Here, we're going to show you how you can change bad content into irresistible content. Do you have Search the MLS, Quick Search, or Mashups? The content that is most requested by your prospects is the ability to search the MLS. If you don't have this or other such tools, your history. Number 3, do you have new home alerts? Oh boy, of all the features that you'll include on your website, this is the one that most agents don't use and is also the most misused, which is interesting as it is the most important to your income. And fourth, do you have an RSS feed? RSS feeds are really simple syndication wherein your prospects can subscribe to your website, blog posts, or other content that you make available. Is your website search engine friendly? All right, so we've established that there may be some importance of looking at getting your website seen by the major search engines. Is it really important? Well, showing up on Google, Yahoo, or Bing is no longer a nice to have. It is a must. Google, Yahoo, and Bing are the major search engines and comprise right now between 90 to 95% of all searches. So, if anything, we must be found by one of those three search engines, and of course, primarily what we want to be found on is Google. I've been fortunate to literally change the lives of many, many agents around the country, and before I show you a little about getting your website seen by the search engines, I'd like to show you some kind of statements that just a few of our clients have made. For example, Pat Wadham said, "The minute I started doing SEO with you, the leads really started coming in. I'm in the top 10 of any search because of you." And Barbara Reeves said, "My ratings have zoomed from the web. I am presently getting almost 1,000 hits a day, and the conversion rate has risen. Thank you so much for your help." And Liz Merriman, "It's nice to see the numbers on the report, but even better to see is the numbers translated into dollars at the closing table. They're doing that on a regular basis. Thank you." So where does that all lead us? SEO. And let's take a look at the first aspect of SEO. Do you have frames? Okay, let's start with that first aspect. And does your website have frames? You can very easily determine this by right-clicking on the main screen of your homepage and then clicking on View Source. Then hold down the Control key and touch or tap the letter F as in Frank. This will bring up the Find dialog box, and now type in the dialog box frames. If your browser indicates that there is nothing that meets this search, you're probably in the clear. If it looks like you do have frames, well, let's look at the problem. Here's an example of one of the most common websites that I see. First of all, an explanation of what a frame is. Think of a window frame. In this example, the material on the left-hand side is the menu area. The information on the right-hand side is the main data area. The problem is search engines only see the left-hand side if this is a framed website, since they read the code left to right. The frustrating thing is that what you want them to read is over on the right-hand side. It's like throwing a party at your duplex and giving people the address of the wrong unit. You can make them come to the building, but not to your party. The original reason for building websites this way years ago was so that the navigation could be created from one window and the website could read from the MLS, the Chamber of Commerce, or other site completely apart from the owner's website on the right. This way, it would appear that the content on the right was owned and controlled by the website owner. One note here. Browsers have been able to read frames since Internet Explorer version 3, but they must be coded correctly. Now, for each of our website mistakes, I'm going to show you the full extent of problems that the website has, even though in each case, I'm only going to go and highlight the worst feature of the website. This way, if you see a site that has the same look and feel as yours, you may want to check out the other problems that this site has. The text that is grayed out contains features that are not a problem with the site. The text that is bolded contains features that are a problem. And the single feature in red is the one feature that is the website exemplifies as the worst feature of the website. Finally, you'll notice that in the case of the bad examples, I've withheld the agent and company information to protect the innocent. Okay, let's say you like the ability to have those navigational links to one side or the other. No problem. Most sites like that we're looking at here are built nowadays to do this, and to do it without frames. Here's a beautiful example of a site that really gets it. Not only does this website not have any frames, but it's well set apart with specific navigational areas. Note the quick search area in the upper right hand, the tabs along the top, the graphical links in the middle of the site, and of course the numerous navigational buttons on the right hand side of the website. This website is immediately in your face with the most important things that the visitor will want to see. SEO point number 2. Graphics are a way to make your website more pleasing and to demonstrate more than words can. However, too many graphics can be deadly to your getting found on the internet. What do I mean? Well, let's take a look at a site. Here's an example of a painfully awful website as far as getting seen by the search engines. This is what the viewer sees. It's pretty, but as I always say, which would you rather have? A website that is the best looking website in the country that nobody knows about, or an average looking website on the first page of every major search engine, including Google, in the country? The idea is to be seen by the major search engines like Google. But since Google can't read graphics, well, that is a problem because you become invisible. What Google sees is basically nothing. In other words, while your website is pretty, it's invisible to Google. Thus, no matter how great it looks, you're going to make no money with it. Kind of like owning the most gorgeous home on the planet on a secluded island that nobody knows about. Now, let's take a look at how we can balance this out. So what should a website look like with regards to graphics? There should be a nice balance of graphics to text. Now, don't start measuring how the graphic is as far as size. That doesn't count. What does count is that you have at least 200 to 500 words of text on your page, much of which should be above the fold so that your viewer can see the content. Your graphics can lead to them in the content. Then the content should be interesting enough about the graphics and the topic that they want to know about. However, the key with using good content with SEO is to intersperse your keyword phrases throughout the text that you're using. This will help pull it up higher in the major search engines. And we'll talk about this as we go along. Number 3 with SEO, now we're going to take a look at your congruent content. To review, we said that the utmost importance is to have your website seen by your visitors. In other words, the importance is to be highly visible on the major search engines. Next, we just reviewed various ways of having a positive design to your website. The whole idea here is to create a hook to catch their attention to want to look further at your site. Now that we've got them looking at your site, let's make the sale. Unfortunately, most agents have no idea of the new changes that Google has made in evaluating your website. Here's a great example of how most agents are not congruent. This agent's website domain name is her own name. Her title is Tomball Real Estate, even though her lead line in her content is Houston Real Estate. And her content has several paragraph headers and links that have nothing to do with real estate or Tomball or Houston. So what is this website all about? Google has no idea. Is it supposed to focus on the agent, the town in her title, or all the various unrelated links in her content? So let's take a look at how we can build a congruent website. Note that I'm demonstrating the three main areas of your website here. Again, the domain name, title, and content should all be in agreement, corresponding to or consistent with each other. To demonstrate what I mean, note how when the domain name turns, the title and content are consistent with each other. To demonstrate my point further, let's take a simple example of a domain name, title, and content. Let's say you sell luxury homes in Denver. You may want to have the title or the domain name of denverluxuryhomes.com or some derivative of this. Or you may be into investment properties with domain name of denverinvestments.com. Now let's take the title and content corresponding with our domain name. Our title for our luxury homes website might be Denver Luxury Homes for Sale. For our investment website, we might want to use Denver Investment Properties. For the content, we'll want to put these same words into the text of the website using Denver Luxury Homes are selling well in today's market. Blah, blah, blah. As an example of our luxury homes website, or Denver Investments have staged a rebound, etc., 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 for our Denver Investments website. Note how we now have a completely congruent website that will get found on the top pages of Google. Now let's assume that our much improved site here has a domain name and title that is similar to Hamptons Waterfront Homes. Our next step is to take advantage of phrases that are also requested by our potential prospects. Phrases that are put into the major search engines are called keyword phrases. In this case, we're using Hamptons Waterfront Homes. Note on our example that I've highlighted all the variations of Hamptons Waterfront Homes, and this would indicate that we have a good keyword density for this particular keyword phrase, and thus it is congruent. SEO point number 4. Do you have a blog site? In our last element for SEO, we want to look at the way that a blog site will work with your website. Here's what an old-fashioned website looks like. It's built with too much what we call stuff. In fact, there's so much stuff that I don't know where to look first. The irony is that with all this stuff on the site, there is no blog site. This site is very cluttered and has no focus. This site falls short in many areas and is very typical of a huge majority of websites out there. In addition to having no blog site on the SEO side, it has frames and has bogus content that isn't interesting to the viewer. But let's go back to the problem of not having a blog site. Why is this so important to have a blog site? Let's take a look at the difference between the structure of the website and the blog site. I think that this will demonstrate why you need both. Note that here on the left-hand side, we have a typical website. Aside from all the features that we'll be talking about in this webinar, one thing is constant with all websites. Due to the fact that they change content so relatively infrequently, the major search engines will re-index the content every 2 to 3 months. Now let's take a look at the typical blog site. By its very nature, the blog site is highly content-oriented. Blog site content changes constantly change as new information comes out on the new antics of, let's say, Paris Hilton, new bills in Congress, or even interest rate changes and background information. In other words, blogs are content-driven and therefore need to be updated much more frequently. In fact, whereas websites are re-indexed by the search engines every 2 to 3 months, blog sites are re-indexed every 2 to 3 hours. So why does this make such a difference in your website visibility? Well, if you have your website linked to your blog site and your blog site linked back to your website, then you get the benefit of the faster re-indexing, and the search engines will follow each link to read both sites. Now let's take a look at how this works with an effective website. Okay, let's start out with a nice overall website that has most of what we'll be talking about today. Note here that there's a tab linked to Crystal's blog site. When the viewer clicks on this link, it automatically takes them to her blog site. However, more importantly, note that from the blog site, here is the home button that links back to the website. Why is this so important? Well, let's not look just at the viewer standpoint, but from the search engine standpoint. Which will the search engine find first? The website or the blog site? Right, the blog site will be seen much more frequently, and when the blog site is seen, because it has a link back to the website, the search engine will follow that link back to the website every time, every 2 to 3 hours. Well, let's start our discussion about design. Do you have rotating slideshows? All right, let's take a look at an example of a website that does not have rotating slideshows. Here's a great example. I've tried to capture here a website that for all intents and purposes to its owner is probably deemed to be professional and effective. However, you're going to have a lot of patience to read through all the verbiage that she has to know what message she wants to give you. Without a rotating slideshow, the focus is all on the agent and how she is trying to get you as a client. We've all heard it said that a picture's worth 1,000 words. If that's true, then a slideshow is worth 1,000,000. Let's take a look at what I mean. Here's an example of our PowerSite website. That it's not only visually attractive, but draws your eye to the rotating slideshow of the various rooms of the featured listing in this case. Unfortunately, because of the bandwidth problems, you'll not be able to see the smooth transitions from one slide to the next, but you would on your website. But watch where the hook comes in. While the eye is scanning the slideshow, it bobs back and forth to the graphic buttons on the right-hand side, giving more features that we'll be talking about later. In addition, the needed content is below. Slideshows can be created to demonstrate many different areas. The classic here is the featured home slideshow. However, they can also be built around several different featured homes. Another very effective use is to showcase the neighborhood with local library, shopping center, kids park, and so forth. Make sure that you build slideshows, or when your website designer builds them, they slowly dissolve from one photo to the next about 4 seconds apart. Design point number 2. Do you have featured listings? Here again, we begin with what may seem to be a nice website with many positive features. Unfortunately, there are more things going wrong with this website than are good. For example, take a look at the very large photo. While this could have been a rotating slideshow demonstrating the area or a featured listing for the buyer's focus, the agent is showing a welcome image meant to build them up. While this site is focusing on assisting the viewer with property searches, they've forgotten that while this is the information the buyer wants, it's not the reason that they'll call you or email you. In other words, they've got the memo on putting in the search the MLS, but forgot the hook that will get the buyer to call or email them. We'll look at that later with the new Home Alerts feature. Let's not forget that sellers want to stand out from the crowd. This is the one feature that you're going to have on your website that's going to be built specifically for the seller. Do it right, and it'll make you a ton of money. Do it wrong, and it'll be an addition to your money pit. Featured listings can be shown in many ways, but should always be thought of through the eyes of the seller. Remember, that's where you're going to make your money. It's not from showing them on your website, but from showing them to your seller with their property already in place as the featured listing. This is especially effective if it can be in the slideshow feature, but it can also work in other ways as well. For example, let's take a look at our first example. Here we have a very professional looking website that is focusing on their featured listings. What you can't see is that each one is built on a multimedia showcase. Each smaller photographic is a thumbnail link to pull up the multimedia presentation on that particular property. When the seller's property is added to this multimedia with all the various rooms, features, and pricing, it makes for a very impressive demonstration of the seller's home. And here's another idea. This is a blend of the showcasing of the featured listing with associated slideshow with the other featured listings to the right-hand side, which are links to more multimedia presentations of the property. Here's the important point. The current most visible and featured of the featured listings should be the one for which you're trying to get the listing. When faced with the option of listing with the agent that night and getting that kind of guaranteed showcasing, or not listing that night and having to pull it off the listing from the featured listings property, well, you can never leave it on there if you don't actually have it listed. It'll make the seller move forward to list the house with you right there. The guilt factor combined with the desire to take advantage of the existence of what you've already done for them will push them over the edge. Very few other agents are doing this. And if done right, it doesn't really cost you that much in time and nothing in expense. Let's look at design point number 3. While I've dealt with slideshows separately, it doesn't make much sense to mention all the other ways you can present multimedia with the website. For example, we can look at photos, podcasts, and video, and these will make a big difference in your website. I'm sure that this website has every good intention of giving assistance to the viewer. It seems that the only thing that the agent is offering is a search the MLS, and you really have to look to find it. I've actually blown her site up larger than it appears on the internet. With basically nothing going on her site, the viewer will be off this site even if they see it in the first place in no time flat. Let's take a look at a little more multimedia way of looking at what the buyer wants to see. Now we have a website that gets it. This is a great way to showcase a featured listing. It can be shown from the home page or as a way seen before when the thumbnail is chosen for the featured listing. Note that not only is there a nice video of each room, but you can advance the show to show other rooms as well. There's also some other great information on the left giving the home's description, image gallery, community information, map, and other tour tools. This is simply a fantastic multimedia showcase of the agent's homes and is very engaging to the viewer and will keep them looking longer on your site than others. And our point number 4 with design. Do you have social media synchronization? What's social media synchronization? Well, you know what a website is, and you know what social media is. Social media synchronization is simply the joining of the two. I have to admit that trying to find websites that didn't have social media synchronization was way too easy. Here's one that I decided to use for several reasons. First of all, take a look at what the agent wants you to focus on. Him. In addition, take a look at the very large open area to the right of the content. It's not even being used for anything. This is sad, as it very easily could have been used for a nice social media synchronization area with posts and links to the agent's social media. The real question is, how should this be done? Here's a website that really gets it with regards to social media synchronization. Focus now on the right-hand side of the website, and not only does the agent invite you to subscribe to the various social media, but he also shares others that have already subscribed as well. Okay, let's take a look at content, our third area, and take a look at the first part of content. Do you have bogus content? Well, what's bogus content? Any content that is not what the prospect or viewer is looking for. Here's a typical example of what I mean by bogus content. Here we have agents that think that the first thing that the viewer or prospect wants to know is all about what the agent is going to do for the particular prospect. What hits you in the face when you see this site? Well, two agent faces content in very small print on how they want your business. Consumers are searching for your services, not information about you. So focus on your services. The vast majority of agents with a website make this as their worst mistake. I call it bogus content. Why bogus? Because it's misleading to the visitor. Keep in mind that the reason that they found your website is because they were looking for information for their interest, primarily homes, community info, and family features. Note how this home page of the website immediately tells the visitor about the information they want to have, which is city and community information. In addition to it telling them about the city and community, it uses keyword phrases and so forth. This is exactly what the visitor is looking for. They will stay tuned to this website longer and read it because that is how they found this particular site, because it's what they were looking for. Point number 2 in content is, do you have Search the MLS, Quick Search, and Mashups? NAR tells us that the number 1 area of content that the visitors to your website are looking for is listings. Search the MLS. This is the homepage of an actual agent website. Note that not only is there no place to search for properties, but the first thing the agent is asking for is the name and information from the visitor to register. This is awful. Remember that this is how your prospects are searching the MLS, from the comfort of their own homes and searching for the right website that is willing to give them the content they are looking for. Here's an agent that really gets it. Not only does she understand what the prospect is looking for first, she is giving them multiple ways to find it. In other words, She offers several ways to search the MLS. Note how in the upper left-hand search, the agent gives the buyer the ability to search by the location. They can search by city, neighborhood, zip code, or MLS number. To the right, the agent offers a quick search widget as well. Our content point number 3 is, do you have new home alerts? Pay attention to this one. Having been in the world of developing effective and productive websites for the past decade, I'm often asked an interesting question. If you could only focus on implementing one feature in your website, what would that feature be? I never have to think for even a second. This would be it. Subscribe to new listings or the new home alerts. And this feature is typically a widget that notifies the buyer of all the homes that come on the market that meet their specific parameters. So why is this feature so important? It's the only feature that you can put on your website where the buyer will want to give you their name and email address, since it's the only way they can get all these new listings that meet their parameters, even ahead of many agents. Here is a rather boring site that is seen all too often. It has very little to do with the typical buyer. Note also the poor use of spacing and content. Too much space is taken up to offer too little content to the buyer. I love the tagline on this website, however, because you have better things to do. Now this is focused on the visitor. And look at what they offer the visitor as the first benefit of visiting this website. The ability to subscribe to new listings. In the description, the agent makes the following explanation. Your first email will list all homes currently for sale that meet your search criteria. Then each morning, you will be emailed a list of all the new homes for sale and price changes since your previous search. Now, if you remember nothing else from this most important feature, remember this. Do not ask for their name and email in advance. Allow them to fill out the form of their dream home preferences in advance. Now you've got them hooked, and they'll want to give you their information in order to be able to be sent these listings on a daily basis. Of all my web warriors that make over $50,000 just from their website, this is the one feature that does it all for them. If you could simply do things that successful people did, why wouldn't you? And our point number 4 with content is, do you have an RSS feed? Simply put, this is an acronym standing for really simple syndication. This site, like way too many others, has an interesting irony. While it is offering some interesting general statistics on various locations, it doesn't offer the visitor a way to subscribe to this information. In other words, if it's good information to put on the website, it should be good enough to offer on a subscription basis. Another thought about having this type of information is that it changes on a fairly constant basis. This would be an indication that the material would be better used for the agent's blog site, which they don't have, than for the website. Still, not quite sure what a RSS feed is or why it's important? Well, let's take a look at a metaphor. Think of an RSS feed like this. Suppose you go to the corner for a newspaper. When you get there, you see that there are many papers to choose from. Viewing from the papers, you decide to choose one of them. Let's say that you become engaged with a paper and you choose to read it. What would you typically do? You'd probably subscribe to it. This way, every morning, you get the paper tossed on your lawn so that you can read it. The same analogy works with your website. If your visitor likes it, what they see, then they will subscribe to it. Now let's go back to the newspaper analogy. Let's say that you become especially enamored with the living and real estate sections of the newspaper. Did you know that you can actually call up the newspaper, cancel your subscription to the entire paper, and only subscribe to those 2 sections that interest you? Yep. And the newspaper won't think you're crazy or anything. All you'll want to do is subscribe to the RSS feeds of those 2 sections. And here we see RSS feeds of every section in the New York Times newspaper. All you have to do is to decide which section or sections you want to subscribe. In fact, not only will you be able to get the same information that you use to get from the delivery service each morning, you'll get it even faster. Think about it. The newspaper can post any story electronically before they print it. Thus, you get all the news faster by subscribing by RSS feed than the old-fashioned paper. And the same thing holds true with your website. People want information as soon as they can get it. So, RSS feeds are particularly effective with blog sites as their information changes more frequently. This is what makes this blog site more effective by placing an RSS feed symbol and link next to the article. Just as content is king with websites, content is also the major factor with blog sites. If your visitor reads your content or post and doesn't find it compelling to subscribe, you've lost them. Therefore, make sure that you're always writing your blog posts as if they were your last. Quickly done posts are at least better than nothing at all, but posts done with a little more research and references show your audience that you care about what you're writing about. Many times, you can find articles in periodicals or magazines that would be of interest to your audience. Keep in mind that these are like your high school English papers. Never plagiarize anyone else's work. So, there is basically one question that you have to ask yourself. Are you a part of the crowd, or do you stand out from the crowd? These 12 mistake fixes will improve the 3 major problems that most agents have: search engine optimization, or marketing of your website so that it can be visible to your visitors on the major search engines; design, which will keep your visitors around longer; and finally, content, which is the bottom line to your website, which means that that is the thing that keeps them around. Now, before we get on with your questions, let's put all this together. Let's put everything we've talked about into one compelling site that synchronizes all this information. Permit me just to take 6 minutes to show you what your marketing could be. Take notes. You're not going to believe what we have for you. We'd like to thank you for making this our most successful product ever. It's mobile enabled and uses the brand new QR barcode technology. Let's get started with Search the MLS. This feature has got to be elegant and in their face. Now, let's include several featured homes for your sellers, whether you decide to add their address or just look at a location. It's up to you. More than this, we should have a primary featured home with a slideshow of rooms, or your featured homes or neighborhood. What should be in their face and prominent? Well, as we said, subscribe to new listings or listing alerts. This is where the site is going to pay you huge dividends. Contact Me is something that every agent wants to have handy for the visitor as well. And a quick search widget is a big draw and will also get you leads. Note that you're offering this as a benefit to all your potential clients. You'll also want to have dynamic pages with cool stuff like CMA widgets, mortgage calculators, and more. Now I know that what some of you are thinking, are you kidding me? All this on one home page? Well, actually, no. I think that there ought to be more. So let's scroll down. Now, let's add video alerts that you can change just like photos from one to another, like video testimonials, video walkthroughs, and so forth. And don't forget the ability for your viewer to subscribe to your site with RSS feeds. Share your information with your clients. With an IDX service such as Diverse Solutions or let's say IDX Broker, you can have a mashup capability of all homes and where they're located. Why not have all your social media incorporated or synchronized into your site as well? Add your Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And again, I'd like to have another Contact Me button at the bottom of the page to make sure they know how to reach you. And remember, this is just the home page, and that's not all. Here is a list of just some of the major features for what we call the WebWarrior Power Site. Ask yourself this question: what am I currently making on my website? If the answer is nothing or very little, what have you got to lose to invest in a site that has all the proven features that a WebWarrior have consistently shown makes them between $50,000 to $100,000 that we have been able to demonstrate? Friends, the future just called and your website is ready. In addition, you're not going to believe the introductory price. The upfront cost of the Power Site with all these features and complete optimization is and will be $1,995, which is well below the competition. We will also include the Gold SEO plan for your current site, which you can see on our website. We normally sell for $3,595. So now you've got two optimized sites for a value of $5,590. And here's the deal. The cost for the Power Site website today is only $895. That's a $4,695 savings. Call us today to lock in this special webinar discounted price for one full week. But listen up. This special price is only for the first 10 callers. Again, you don't have to buy today, but you must call today. We'll lock in the savings for you for one full week. Call us right now, and here's the number: 800-277-1316. That's right, it's toll-free, 800-277-1316. Now, I know that many of you are saying, well, what good is having another website? This is the reason. 1 plus 1 equals 6. In other words, two sites are not twice as effective as one, but two optimized sites are 6 times as effective as one. So we're giving this nearly $5,000 savings to you only to the first 10 people who call in. Remember, you don't have to buy for a week. We'll hold this price for you while you do your due diligence. We want you to see what others have seen, that this is the best investment you'll make all year long. Are you ready to make a change in your life? Are you ready to act on your future? You can do so by calling us today. Well, let's get on to your questions now. And Stephen has one. He says, Randy, thank you so much for the informative webinar. Let's see. I just got a website made for me, and I've made more than half the mistakes you've mentioned here. What would you suggest I do to correct them? Well, the first thing I'd say is download the handout. And the handout includes all of the areas that we discussed and the way to correct them, and then call your webmaster. Also, I would say, and I hate to say it this way, but the best way to correct all those mistakes is to buy our Power Site. It has everything already corrected in it at the low price of $8.95. Okay, let's see, Rachel has a question. I like how my website looks, but how do I know if I have too many graphics on my website? That's a great question, Rachel. Can you see text above the fold is my first question. If you can see at least half of that space that's devoted to content versus graphics, you're okay. If all you see is one big graphic or a series of graphics without seeing content, then you probably have problems. So take a look at your homepage. You have to have at least 200 to 500 words of text in addition to your graphics. And please do not have these big, huge graphics that take up the entire space above the fold. Okay, let's see. Mike has a quick question. My MLS system with our board only allows the broker to use the search the MLS feed. Is there a way around this? Oh boy, I wish I had a nickel for every time I get asked this question. Demand from the board of directors, if you can, that they share the access with the agents. And here's the way to do it. Make sure you share with them that the MLS company will actually make more money if they'll share it with the agents, as there are more people that they can share it with that way, as opposed to a fewer number of brokers. Now, you might have an ego situation there with the brokers owning the data, but you're just going to have to work around that. Most MLSs now have gotten around that situation. Kathleen has a question. She says, I have a question about your rotating slideshows. I have this feature in my website, but every time I want to change it, my webmaster charges me $100. Is there a way around this? Well, yes, there is, Kathleen. You should have access to your own site to do it yourself. And I'm just going to draw this again. Our Power Sites don't have this problem. It's all plug and play. If you have a new listing, if you have a new neighborhood, if you have a new area that you want to do a change for that slideshow, it's just a plug and play, and you just drop in the slides that you want and they move on from there. You should not have a webmaster that holds you hostage to make these changes. Well, let's see. Let's take Christine as our last question here. I had to take a phone call when you were talking about your new websites. I heard you say that the cost of the Power Site was $8.95. You provide a gold SEO plan on my current website and include this new optimized Power Site. What is the monthly charge for the hosting fee and for the SEO charges as well? And, well, that depends upon what level of service that you want, Christine. And the monthly can be anywhere between $75 a month to $195 per month, depending upon where you like to be with the services that are tailored to you. Now, I can tell you that 9 out of 10 of these products that we sell get the gold service, which is the $195 per month, but you're going to have to call in and find out what are all the features and the services that we include with all that. But you will find that it is well worth the money, because this is an investment. It is not a product that you're buying. It is an investment that you're buying. Now, if you remember nothing else from our time together, please remember this thought by Theodore Roosevelt. In any moment of decision, the best thing that you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. And the worst thing that you can do is nothing. Thank you for your time today, for attending today, and have a great day.